Klingenberg!
So, hi everyone, thanks for coming. I know there's always a difficult selection, so I appreciate everyone that's here. This is my second time on this stage. The first one was at my first QED when Susan Blackmiller was here, and I was her volunteer to demonstrate the body transfer illusion. So this time, we won't be talking about that, but it's still within the paranormal realm, so I guess that's a tradition now. What I will talk about is I'll give you some interesting stories about the past and about various moments in the history of paranormal research, the various stories that we can learn from. And then I'll talk about an exciting project that we're currently building in the Czech Republic when it comes to paranormal research, and round it all off why we as skeptics should still not abandon the whole realm of paranormal. There's so many more important topics, no debate about that, but I'll show you how the paranormal can be a wonderful tool to get people excited about science and to learn the scientific method as well. So, let's start. I will require audience participation, just so you know. 1584. Does anyone know what happened in this year? Does anyone recognize the guy on the picture? Okay, it's Emperor Rudolf II, and he was the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. His seat of power was in Prague, and he also oversaw the first paranormal experiment, double-blinded one, kinda. So, and Rudolf II was a huge patron of the arts, and he was a huge enthusiast into alchemy, and he loved the idea that something can be changed into gold, something of a completely different nature can be changed into gold. And so he would hire alchemists left and right to do that for him, to try to do that for him, and all of them just kept failing. Then one day, this guy shows up. Anyone? Edward Kelly. Nostradamus close enough, but no, this is Edward Kelly. So he was an alchemist coming all the way from Great Britain, and he said, sure, I can do that. But Rudolf was already tired of spending time and money on alchemists that would not produce anything and would just use that opportunity to eat and drink at the royal court. So he said, fine, but you are going to be locked in a room and you're not getting out until you produce gold. So Edward Kelly said, fine, I have no problem with that. So they brought his trunk with all his equipment into the room. The trunk was searched, all his equipment was searched, and he was locked in that room with soldiers standing outside to make sure no one could pass him anything and that he couldn't get out until he actually finished the experiment and could produce gold. So in a few days, he did get food though. So in a few days, he did knock on the door saying, I have produced gold. And Rudolf had to test it, and truly, he really did produce gold. And so he was named the head alchemist of the royal court. He was given an incredible amount of money, a full-time position, all kinds of perks. And as you do, he went to the first pub, got incredibly drunk, and told everyone there that he had a hidden bottom in his trunk with gold shavings. So that, of course, got back to Rudolf immediately. And Edward was jailed for that. But because he wasn't like a regular person, he got like a fancy jail with draperies and all kinds of stuff. So he decided that he would try to escape using the draperies as a rope. And I thought that only happened like in comic books, but apparently this guy tried it too. But unlike the comic books, the ropes ripped, and he fell and he broke his leg, and it had to be amputated. He was sent to recover at like a small castle, and while he was recovering, he was writing horoscopes to make some money, since he was such a big success in that realm. And when he got better, and when he healed, he tried to escape again. And the ropes broke again. His second leg broke. It had to be amputated. And he was sent to another castle to recuperate and recover, and he spent the rest of his life living there. It was a castle in what is now northwestern Bohemia, and he spent the rest of his life writing out horoscopes. So I don't know if we can call this a successful experiment. However, it does kind of foreshadow all of the paranormal research we as skeptics have done in the sense of how it turns out, not the amputations, but the success rate, pretty much. Another really cool experiment that we can talk about, and this is someone you will definitely recognize, happened in 1782. So who's this guy? Wonderful. Do you know who this guy is? Is there anyone here from chemistry? Chemistry background? Yes? Lavoisier, so the father of modern chemistry. This guy, this is Mr. Guillotine, the inventor of the guillotine. And what were these guys doing hanging out? Well, they were actually testing this guy. This guy is Franz Anton Mesmer. He was a magnetologist, magneto-animal connection energy guy from Austria. By the way, very good friends of the Mozart family. And he invented this new method of healing that relied on putting hands on people after he had touched magnets. First, he would, when he began his career, he would lay magnets in the shape of the organ that was in trouble. Then he would just touch the magnets and lay his hands on people. And then he would just cut out the whole magnet thing and just lay the hands. And he was actually very successful when it came to healing this woman, Teresa Maria Paradis, who was a contemporary of Mozart. I do recommend looking up her music. There isn't much that was left, but she was actually quite brilliant. She was a blind pianist, composer. And after his care, she could actually see better. But that wasn't because his care was miraculous. It was just that she wasn't under care of the doctors who were doing horrible things to her and actually made her condition worse. But there was a success story, kind of, as it goes. The problem was that her regular medical care did consist of having pressure put on her eyes and this like weird helmet thing that would constrict her skull, and she would get really a bad eye redness and swollen eyes from these medical procedures. So when actually she was just visiting Mesmer, who just let her relax and kind of sleep, and would like occasionally she would get a massage. Yes, she was better. But yeah, it didn't mean that he actually improved her condition. However, because she did have a little bit of a better sense of light and dark after his care, he took that as a big win, and he got himself onto the court of Louis XIV. And that's when he got into the whole realm of meeting Ben Franklin and Lavoisier and Mr. Guillotine. This was before the revolution, of course. So Mesmer started a clinic in Paris for women, mainly, where he would help them feel better. And as you can imagine, that was not very popular with the Parisian men. So this was his technique. He had a big vat full of water with iron rods sticking out of it. And this is like a dressed version. But the idea was that the ladies in waiting and the ladies of the court would go to him, and first, before the master came into the room, they would be massaged by young, barely dressed men. Then they would hold on to the iron rods that were in the vat or get into the vat, and would go through feelings of ecstasy because of the magnetic powers, of course. And the animal magnetism that Mesmer was pushing. And then the master would come in and he would just wave his hands, and all the ladies would like shriek in ecstasy and pure bliss. and we're recommending this procedure to all the other ladies around. So, as you can imagine, that's why the whole crew showed up to actually look at Mesmer. But in the meantime, Mesmer had already left Paris. So the person that Franklin and Lavoisier and Guillotine were testing was one of his students, not him personally. And the student just didn't get the same results. So based on that, they said, oh yeah, mesmerism doesn't work. However, we know that to mesmerize is still within our vocabulary. That comes from this guy. So that was a success story for him. What he did is now called hypnosis. He is considered like the father of modern hypnosis. So that is his story. And the test, what they did at the time with his student was that the student was supposed to remove pain from someone using the magnetic pulls and the magnetic movements that Mesmer taught him, and that person didn't feel any better, didn't feel less pain. So the three guys said, okay, this doesn't work, and we will no longer allow Mesmer to run his clinic in Paris. So Mesmer returned back to Vienna, from which before he had to leave because the local medical community had issues with Teresa Paradis getting better. So yeah, he kind of was trying to find a place where he would not piss everyone off, but the way how he went about it didn't really work. So another story from the history of paranormal research. You recognize this guy. I know there's a number across his face, but it's Houdini. Houdini loved his mom very much, as I'm sure a lot of you know. I know there are some of you that are first time at QED, some of you that are in skepticism or within the skeptic movement longer. You will probably know this story, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating what you already know. So Houdini loved his mom, and he was very famous for his escapology acts, so escaping from tight places and bounds and everything. But because in the 1910s and 1920s, Spiritism became so popular and became such a big thing all over the world, he taught himself to become like a medium, and he did medium performances, among other things. And when his mom died in 1923, he decided that he actually wants to find a medium that can do it for real, not like him. So he started traveling all over the States and then in Europe as well, looking for a medium that could actually contact his mom. And pretty much he would leave the table immediately once the medium he was speaking to started speaking English, because even though his mom was in the US for a lot of years, she refused to learn English. So he knew that the second the medium speaks English, nope, my mom only speaks Hungarian. So this effort of his became really popular in the media, and people took notice, and one of the publications that took notice was Scientific American. And they created a special panel to be able to judge paranormal phenomena, and they did offer a monetary prize for that as well, if someone succeeded. And using his expertise and the expertise of people on the panel, they wanted to go and test various mediums. Part of that panel was also the chairman of the American Spiritualism Society, and the chairman of the Parapsychological Society as well, which at that time did not have the bad name as it does today. So it seemed that it was quite academic. So imagine Houdini is sitting in his kitchen one day, drinking his coffee, opens a newspaper, and he sees that the Scientific American has awarded the prize for proving the paranormal to Amina Crandon. And he just loses his mind. He goes to the offices and says, like, how could you have done this without consulting me? Who cares about your reputation? You can always go back to being a scientist, but, I'm a magician and I need to, keep some kind of reputation here. And this completely destroys it if she's a fraud. So he insisted that he wants to go see her and he wants to test her himself. So he did, and when he showed up there, he realized that the two people that were there to test her, one of them was completely in love with her, and the second one borrowed money from her husband. So that, when it comes to objectivity, that's something you kind of have to disclose usually when you write a paper, right? Mina was very well aware of what was going on and about the whole process. She purposely opened the door before to the scientists and now even to Houdini in a negligee, which, it was the 1920s. Her ankles were showing, hot stuff. And she was actually incredibly intelligent. We know about her that before she got married, she was an avid reader, horse rider. She had lots of hobbies. She was interested in current events. She was active in many salons and women's groups and discussions. And after she got married to Dr. Crandon, he didn't think that was very ladylike of her to do all these things. So he pretty much kept her at home without her getting to do anything that she actually enjoyed. But her husband was really into reading the Journal of Spiritualism and various articles on mediums. And so one day, she just started exhibiting medium-like symptoms and medium-like abilities. And every time her husband would talk to her about a new thing that mediums could do, like ectoplasm, suddenly she could do it too in a couple of days, which honestly, it's kind of awesome. And in this story, I have a hard time to decide who I'm actually rooting for. I know I should be rooting for Houdini, but anyway. So Houdini went to test her, and the first time that he was testing her, they were sitting around a round table, and she thought still that she could seduce Houdini into admitting that she is the real thing. So she ran her stocking leg up his leg under the table. The thing is that at that time, men used to wear the sock suspenders. So her stocking got stuck on his suspenders, and it just became a whole awkward thing. So that didn't work out. She did perform a couple of miracles that Houdini immediately knew what she was doing and how she was manifesting everything. So the tests that they did were becoming more and more difficult. At one point, this is what they did to her. They put her in a box where you can see her arms were just showing. That's Houdini next to her. And she was supposed to still manifest various phenomena. So the men left for a minute, and when they came back and the lights got turned off and the whole medium shtick started, there was a bell put in front of her, and it rang. So what she did was that while the guys went off, she asked her servant, "Oh, could you please hand me that ruler over there? I'm itching." And he did, and so what she did was she pulled it up through the hole and put it in her mouth and rang the bell that way, and then quickly hit it back in. Again, absolutely amazing. So anyway, this went on for a while. This went on altogether for 3 years, this back and forth of various testing. There was a final big test that happened on the stage in the theater, and it was very anticlimactic because people went there. She did not succeed in the experiment, but no one really cared that she didn't succeed. And Houdini, at that point, was like happy, okay, I beat her. I'm going to move on to something else. And he died shortly after from, as we all know, getting hit in the stomach during a performance where he was trying to demonstrate how muscled he is, that anyone can hit him in the stomach, but then someone who was a boxer did, and yeah, it ruptured his insides. But she lived for many years after that, still making money as a medium, still doing her thing. And I think this is a really important story when it comes to discussions about if, when we as skeptics investigate people who claim to have supernatural abilities, we always get told, "Oh, yeah, but you're ruining their lives." Are we though? So far, we've seen that everyone has continued within their career, no matter what the skeptical audience has done in the meantime. Yeah. So that's the beginning of the 20th century. Now, I'm sure all of you know that within the 20th century, especially during the Cold War, there was a lot of research being done on creating the perfect paranormal soldier and looking for abilities. So this is from the CIA library. Soviet and Czechoslovakian parapsychology research, confidential. You can actually find that document there, read the whole thing. It's a bunch of pages. There's a bunch of stuff about there. So there is a fascinating story with this. In Prague, so that's the capital of then Czechoslovakia, in Prague, there were only a few hotels where foreigners could stay in, and those hotels were bugged extensively to make sure that no information gets away. And this was also like the main hub of exchange of information, so it was really hard to keep any piece of information quiet, but it didn't always get, like when you play the game where you whisper it into the ear of someone, they whisper into the ear of someone, and it ends up being something completely different at the end. So this kind of happened. There was a parapsychological laboratory that was run by Kahuda, who also was the Minister of Health at the time, as one is. And that's also, by the way, like a complete side thing. It's fascinating to me looking at how the communist regimes looked down on various religions, but then they had no problem funding a whole parapsychological laboratory. Sure. So Mr. Kahuda heard of this invention. It was supposed to be a special helmet that maximizes your brain power to the point where you can actually kill flies. And the inventor of it was called Pavlita. So he said, yes, I will finance the research of Mr. Pavlita. So Pavlita came to Prague and started living there and got his own lab and everything to be able to run his research. And that piece of information, that this helmet can somehow maximize your brainwaves to the ability to kill flies, got into that hotel and got translated into the Soviets can kill flies with their mind. And of course, the Americans are not gonna just go and kill flies. You have to do something better. So they decided they're gonna concentrate on goats. Fantastic, yes, goats. And who saw the movie Men Who Stare at Goats, 2011, George Clooney? Yep, that is based on a true story coming from my country. Kind of, again. So, they decided to concentrate on goats. And of course, that gets translated into the Americans can kill goats with their minds. So there was a huge delegation sent from Moscow to Prague to look at the research Pavlita has to see, okay, if he has the flies, how do we amp this up? How do we do horses? And so they went to actually look at what he was doing, and they found a very confused old man running around a room with flies buzzing around him, with no results whatsoever. So in the documents at the time, it was written that because of the seriousness and secretiveness of this research, it had to be moved to Siberia. In reality, the whole thing was closed down. No one wanted to talk about it. It was incredibly embarrassing, and it was just completely discontinued. And there was no punishment done, because if you would have punished someone, then they would have admitted that you made a mistake. So it was just okay, we're not gonna talk about that at all. Yeah, so goats, like this one. So apparently, if you show an audience a picture of a cute animal, it raises their attention 10%. Do not check me on that. I'm sure it's not true, but now you're paying attention. No. So this is a goat from our Paranormal Research Center. We are not killing them yet. No. So we were given by the Czech military a bunker to be able to run our paranormal experiments in. And we're currently reconstructing that bunker. It was a really long process to get it. And we decided that, of course, for history reasons, we need goats. So we got two. This is Cruella, and this is Hilda. We will have some more in the future. Currently, their big job is to eat all the greenery that we cannot get to, and we're too lazy to mow. And we have this building, which looks like a ugly communist house. But if you walk through that garage door right over there, you get into a really cool Cold War bunker that was built in the case that the Americans decide to nuke us. And it was supposed to be the headquarters for the military the air control offices of the military airport that's kind of nearby. And yeah, so let's go look inside. Can we dim the lights a little? Can we dim the lights, please? Thank you. So this is not from Blair Witch, just to make it clear. Yeah. So this is just a small part that I'm showing you here. This is going to be the main testing room, but it has a lot of really cool smaller rooms where we will conduct telepathy experiments. There's going to also be a little paranormal research museum showcasing the wonderful history of paranormal research. And it's going to also have education rooms, classrooms, for us to be able to teach university students about how people get false positives with alternative medicine, how the placebo effect isn't really what they think it is, and how various con men can con you no matter what your specialty is. And being an engineer, being a psychologist, being a doctor doesn't mean anything, because you're always going to only be a member of the audience to them, unless you actually know how to look behind the curtain. Just to show you where it is, it's going to be right here. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you the location of our super secret bunker. Like, are you kidding? So what we are planning on doing is that when we have people come there, we're going to pick them up at the nearby city, put hoods on them, and take them to here. So Marsh is coming in November. So if you see a picture of him with a black hood, he's fine. He's fine. Okay, he survived. And that's the thing, though. Like, doing this show around this, doing the secrecy, talking about the history, talking about the Cold War experiments, talking about the really cool history of alchemists, doing the whole charade with the not telling you the location and putting a black hood over your head. That makes it so much fun, and it grabs so much attention. And that's kind of what we as skeptics need, because we keep trying to figure out ways how to get our message out there, how to get people enthusiastic about skeptical thinking, about various skeptical topics, and how to actually examine various things. And people, when you start off with complex issues like climate change or transgenic organisms or anything that's going to be talked about this weekend, where we all subject us to this voluntarily because it's amazing, people usually don't understand how they can relate to that. But paranormal experiments are fucking cool, and they are fun, and it's a great way to explain how double-blind trials work. You can do experiments on telepathy and show what difference of results you can get depending if the people are looking at each other or if they're in different rooms. You can explain how new medication gets tested, showing the differences in like having a healer pretending to heal you, or not, well, they think they're healing you, and having a control group to that. So this is what we're trying to do now, is we're trying to use the interesting past we as skeptics have to get more skeptics in the future. Because this is just such a cool tool how to work with people. You can demonstrate all the important basics of how science works, of how the scientific method works. You can teach critical thinking with goats, and cute goats, and in a space that's very unique. And even if you don't have access to this space, getting people interested, people will always look at like ghost hunting stories and will look at paranormal stories. Even if they tell you they don't really believe it, they are still pulled in by that topic. And yes, we as skeptics have so many more important topics to talk about, absolutely, but sometimes you do need a hook. And talking about the Loch Ness Monster, who here is not from the UK? Put your hand up. Did you read in your national media about the Loch Ness Monster hunt that happened a couple of weeks ago? Did you? Right? Yeah. I mean, it wasn't even a UK thing, but it was picked up by non-English media because people just love it. And it doesn't matter that for 100 years no one has seen the Loch Ness Monster, no matter how hard they tried. It's still going to be picked up. People are still going to want to talk about this. This has also led to a really cool TV show that we've got to do that puts critical thinking, teaches critical thinking in a way that's not forceful or not direct. And it has got a lot of traction, and we got picked up for a second season for it as well, and for a movie. So people still love paranormal stuff. And if you want to get people enthusiastic about skepticism, paranormal is the way you can enter into that space, and you can enter into their space. So I think I will stop here. And if you have any questions, comments, stories you want to ask me about, like what the sounds you hear at night, we can definitely talk about that. It's actually interesting. People think that, oh, if you're not in a skeptic community, people will think that, oh, yeah, but no one actually at work believes in that. But I get told stories from people you would not expect to have some. Like, because I have, like, if you're at an event and you have the word paranormal above your head, people will come and tell you. So a professor from the University of Mathematics came to tell me that there's something staring at him from the corner of his kitchen. I'm sure he doesn't tell his colleagues that, but that's the thing. Like, you can open up a space that they have not explored with anyone else because they feel shamed, or they feel they don't want to admit to having any kind of experience or any kind of belief like that, but they will open up to you through that. And then together you can go and figure it out together. I was on a radio show, and someone called in about having a ghost of a communist walking up on their attic and waking them up. And so together we came to the conclusion that actually, no, it was the ferrets. Like, there's a special breed of forest ferrets that's in that area. And they make so much noise, it does sound like a human is actually walking on your roof, but no. So, yeah, people will open up to you in ways you do not expect. So definitely try to use the paranormal as much as you can, and yeah, have fun with it.